Bruce has just hired his 15th employee, and we are delighted now if you could welcome Bruce Lyon. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. I really appreciate you inviting me today. So I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. And that's kind of hard to do, but it's a good place to start. And it's a story that I know. I graduated from Chapman University after bouncing back and forth between Chapman and the University of California at Irvine. Grew up in Newport Beach and Laguna Beach area. Shortly after graduating, I got a job in an electronics company, and after several years, really started my own business. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But I've been an entrepreneur pretty much all my life. I then sold my business, moved to Santa Barbara, and goofed around for about a year. You guys look like you're part of the lineup. And surfed, some pretty good waves, because this is a good place for waves. And then went on to consult with a lot of big media and technology companies, ending up at Sun Microsystems. I'm a family man. My family's really important to me. I have 2 kids. My youngest is a senior at UC Santa Cruz. My oldest is an architect. And like I keep saying, I surf, I ski, and I play a lot of tennis. So want to give you a little history about how I got to where I am. In college, I really spent the last year traveling, and in fact, Chapman at the time had the Semester at Sea program, and I really took advantage of that and traveled around our planet. And it's funny, when you do that, your perspective, it changes incredibly. My first job after graduation was running a nonprofit for an electronics company in Anaheim, California called Odetics. And the interesting thing about that was that even though I was doing community projects and outreach, my office was back where the design engineers were. And this particular division made time-lapse video tape recorders for bank security, 7-Eleven, stuff like that. And they gave me this video technology to play with, and I did. And at the same time, I was interested intellectually, I guess, in art and contemporary art, all things in the vanguard, I guess you might say. And this led me to start using some of this video equipment to make art. And that's after a couple of years at Odetics, I actually enrolled at UCSB in the School of Visual Arts, the graduate school there, and studied under Alan Capro. And for me, this guy was probably one of the most important mentors in my career. He was a guy who broke up the idea that art was really a product, and convinced a lot of people actually that art was more idea. And that was a really interesting concept to me, and had an indelible effect on my career. From there, I really, well, a short story is this. I had a studio in Laguna Beach. I was making a tape for a New York museum, a videotape. I was renting out part of my studio because it was more than I needed, and I could have used more money to pay my rent. And a guy walks in, and he was an animator, and he saw what I was doing, and he said, you know, that's really a lot like animation. And to make a long story short, we kind of cobbled together a simple idea, but we were able to make a character, one of his animated characters, move. And by doing that, this stimulated a really, you know, that whole light bulb thing going off. and I went back to Odetics, that original company that I went to work for, and I explained to them this idea of using video to do single frame animation. And the president said, hey, you know, here's an engineer, go figure it out. And we did. And after about 9-10 months, we came up with a prototype. And we took that prototype to Walt Disney Animation, showed it to the animators there. I didn't turn this off, sorry. And they went, wow, we'll take 3 of those. And all of a sudden, I was in business. And my career as an artist abruptly ended. And it was great for me because I couldn't figure out how I was going to make money at it. And I started a company, Lion Lamb, to develop this first video animation system. Disney saved about $10 million of their first, using this system on the first animated feature. This technology was used by virtually every animation and special effects house, Star Wars, all of that. And you know, it led me into the development of a technology company. So along the way, because of that trip around the world, I also, my buddies liked something called Kratex. Does anybody know what a Kratex is? Oh, you are clean livers. A Kratex is a clove cigarette. Has anybody smoked or, does anybody know what a clove cigarette is? Wow, that's pretty good. So this entrepreneurial thing led me to really figure out a way to import these, a special brand that I like, my friends like, in Orange County. And I brought them from Indonesia, and I started selling them to tobacco stores and stuff like that. I didn't do it. I had somebody do it. I was really running the video animation company. But this also turned into a relatively good-sized business. And it's something I ran out of a drawer. I didn't really pay a lot of attention to it. But I'm talking about it because I couldn't have gotten there without traveling. And it was that traveling experience that really kind of shaped my view of the world and opportunity around the world. So Lion Lamb I started and built into a pretty good sized technology company. When I sold it, we had 55 people. And success, it was interesting. We never stopped. We went from selling the first 3 at Disney and never stopped until the end. And I can tell you that I learned more when things weren't going well, when I was failing, than I did when I was succeeding. And I don't know how to communicate that, other than to say my gray hair comes from the fact that I guess I've been challenged in my life. And success is seductive, but you really don't really get it until you fail. And I failed a couple of times. And that led me to switching direction, and I completely recast myself. And instead of being an entrepreneur, I really got interested in working for and around large companies. That forced me to really adapt to a completely new culture. An entrepreneurial environment is a place where there's too much to do, not enough time, money, or people to do it in, so everybody does lots. Big companies, oddly enough, are the opposite of that. So big companies are more money, more resource, more people than ideas or things to do. And that was a really interesting shift, and understanding both of those cultures was very valuable to me. And it taught me that at the end of the day, it's really about how you cope, how you make it work, how you navigate through life's weird paths. And some of the things that I'm really thinking about here is one of my kids was diagnosed with leukemia. Just right out of the blue. It was 16 years old, and his life was completely disrupted, and he was confronted with and we were all confronted with his potential mortality. And I'm telling you, you never expect stuff like that. It's like that accident on the freeway. And the older you get, the more opportunity there are for those things to happen in your life. And with all that said, I had this idea to do a new business, and like that Ameriprise commercial, if you've ever seen it, I just turned 60 on Monday and started IMT, this new company, in April of last year, and we're just doing gangbusters. So what is my new company? It's called Integrated Media Technologies, and what I've really put together is a set of world-class technology experts around the media business who design and build and install and maintain these big digital studios. We just finished a digital studio for the Jim Henson Company, and we designed the whole infrastructure, from the workstations that do the animation and the motion capture to the storage that really stores and is the repository for all of their scenes and characters and all of that stuff, and then all of the editing pieces and the support for all those editing pieces as well, and tying that into a complete unified system. That's what our expertise is, and the kind of thing that we're just doing a lot of. And finally, there's a kind of an advisory role to this, which is helping companies figure out how to make the transition from analog to digital. I'll talk more about that in a minute. So I'm just kind of going to go fast here. So companies, as you guys know, are in the throes of moving away from film and television, analog television, and they're moving towards digital content in all of its various flavors. And these are created at very, very high resolution as very large digital files. In order to get this thing out to iPods and iPhones and computers and various digital methods of distribution, it's got to be transcoded. So we have systems and technologies that help do that transcoding very efficiently. And then it's got to be delivered as a file that can be pushed out to everybody, to the guys who are distributing digital media. And you know who the suspects are. And then finally it ends up on your device. And every device, it turns out, has a different format. And so how you figure that out and build a technology system that can automatically provide that content to lots of consumers is what IMT is all about. Just quickly, this is a slide I pulled out of our corporate deck, but you know, it manifests itself in a range of technology products and also a set of services where people bring us videotape or DVDs and we convert it into these video files. So what's important to me? especially as it relates to my life as a 60-year-old. As far as business is concerned, if someone said, well, what are you really doing? The answer is, I'm building a great team. And in any business, especially when it's in its formative stage, the team is the essential thing. And if you don't have a strong team, you cannot deliver on your promises to either yourself or your investors or the marketplace. I learned from a very young age that creativity really was something that was important to how you stay in front of a marketplace or a technology. And in order to stay creative, you've got to be open. You know, you've got to be able to let it in, especially things that don't either seem off-putting or may be ridiculous or at first blush don't account for much. But unless you're open, it's very hard to understand how to really adapt to change. For me, you know, I'm kind of a old-fashioned guy in the sense, honesty and trust are kind of the most important values to me, and it's nothing I you know, get worked up about, but I know it when I see it, and I also have good antenna about things and people that aren't honest or trustworthy, and I pay a lot of attention to that. As a business person, probably my best skill is my listening skill. So I don't think you can get anything done without hearing what somebody else has to say. And in fact, I think, you know, my own private comment about the state of the world, I don't think there's enough listening going on. If we were better listeners, I think we'd live in a more secure environment. And then obviously, my family is really, they're the people that drive me, that make me feel human, and both give it to me and give it to me, if you know what I mean. So I think you need to find that center, and for me it's my family. And finally, and this is something that my parents really somehow instilled in me, and that is the idea of giving something back. So in my family, giving something back is an important part of what our sense of personal responsibility is. And I think no matter what it is, if you're not doing it for yourself, but doing it for something else or someone else, that's a really good thing. So I think that's about it. And don't know how I'm doing on time, but I'm happy to take questions.
You're doing great on time.
Good.
I know that you're creative and you're really artistic, and when you're doing these technologies to apply that, were you ever thinking that this could lead into becoming like a member of that community where you could become like a director in animation? Or
So that's a really good question. So when I started Lion Lamb with this guy, John Lamb, who was an animator. And he was a wild and crazy guy. And the technology business is more buttoned down, you know, than that. And there was this side of me that wanted to exploit our creativity. So partly to kind of build a focus around John and stay creative, we started using our own technology to make animation. And we went to Tom Waits. Does anybody know who Tom Waits is? He's an old geezer, you know, but like the original Beat character. And we convinced him that we wanted to do an animated short about him. And we had seen his show at the Pantages Theater in Hollywood, and he did this, I'm kind of embarrassed to say, he did this really cool thing where he sang this song and out came the stripper, and he did this thing, dance with a stripper. So this, we thought, you know, we weren't going to make it X-rated, but this we thought was kind of a sexy thing, and we could make this really cool animated short, like a music video, but a short. And we had done really well with the animation business, and we didn't want to hassle the record company. We just wanted to deal with Tom Waits. So he agrees to do it. We shoot this with 6 cameras, and I'm directing the whole thing. And you had to lock down the cameras and then edit the piece together, and then use each frame and trace Tom Waits and the actress. And that technology was what we built or designed and developed, and we thought using it would be really cool. And then animators would do the backgrounds and animate the characters and all of this. So we shot the video, we go to Cal Arts, we hire a bunch of animators. In fact, Lasseter, the guy who does the Disney, Pixar's, all of Pixar's animation, was the star student at the time. And we hired a bunch of animators. In fact, one of them was a guy named David Silverman, who's the senior producer on the Simpsons movie, and did that. And we really, the idea was to do this right. And John was directing the animation, and we got back the first third of it, and we burned about $30,000 of our own money. And it was horrible, absolutely horrible. And this was John not being out of his league in some way, and I had to step in and do it. And it cost us a bunch of money to get it done. And we go to show it to Tom Waits and the record company and his manager, who is the biggest slimeball on the planet. And we show him the video. He loves it. And the next day, his record company cans him. And the whole thing evaporated. I mean, it was just a dead loss. And so this really pushed me away from animation, from production. And it taught me a lesson that I need to stick with what I know, which was technology. But by the way, you can see this film, Tom Waits for No One, on, I think it's on YouTube. So check it out. Anyway, I'm sorry, that was a really long answer to a short question. Well,
you said that building a great team was important to you. What is it you're looking for in people or the organization?
so what am I looking for? Well, honesty and trust. That's kind of step one. I'm looking for, well, I'll tell you a story. So it's very hard hiring really talented engineers. And if you go to the obvious places, Craigslist or Monster, or you hire a headhunter in some way, it's very hard to get a really good candidate. So I read this book, and it said, if you want to really hire hot talent, go to the hot universities. So we constructed a kind of a clever ad, and we went to Berkeley, Stanford. I think we came here. I know we did. UCLA, Caltech, and Harvey Mudd. Does anybody know Harvey Mudd? It's an engineering school. near the Claremont colleges. And we got, the problem was this was in late October, so we knew we were going to kind of miss the first wave. Most computer science, software engineering guys, good guys have got a job. So we got a couple of what I thought were mediocre resumes, and I got this one answer from a kid in Oxnard. So just so you know, live in Santa Barbara, the IMT is in North Hollywood, and so the business is really in Los Angeles. I can't make money here. I just can't do it. And so this kid's name was Jose Palencia, and he came into my office, and he just graduated from Stanford. And the first question I asked him was, well, what have you been doing? You know, you graduated in June. What have you been doing? And he's kind of got a sheepish look on his face, and he said, I've been learning to play the guitar. And you know what? That was it. That was the right answer. And this is a kid who had worked his fanny off all of his life. All of it. And he moved to Oxnard after his father graduated from the fields to working in a body shop. He brought his family up to Oxnard from Mexico. Kid worked his fanny off, got a full boat scholarship to Stanford, and a 4.0 computer science kid. And the fact that he knew enough about himself to say, and to say to me, I'm learning to play music, you know? Somehow that was the thing. That was the thing. Now, we vetted him in a lot of different ways, but that wasn't, there was something inspired about that. And I guess, I cannot quantify it. I can only qualify it. It's like pornography. You know it when you see it. It's funny that got the best laugh. Yes?
How do you go from 0 to $400 million in revenue?
No, 4 million.
Oh, 4 million.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay. That's a little more reasonable then.
Yeah.
How do you go? How do you do that?
You know, I wish I could.
Yes. In
That would be
9 months with
fantastic.
15 employees.
I'm sorry?
How do you do that in 9 months with 15 employees?
So, well, when we started, we had this incredible team of guys. So I had two of Sun Microsystems' hottest salespeople in media and entertainment, and they came to work for me. I had what Sun calls a distinguished engineer, a star engineer. I had a guy from who ran the RenderMan group at Pixar as the chief software designer. I had a CFO who had been the CFO for a public internet company. Our chairman ran a big public media company. So it started, like I said, it started with the team. And what we knew was that there was a lot of business that Sun's current group of partners weren't able to attract. And our level of expertise gave us the ability to go into a customer and discuss their technology problem and really convince them that we could craft the solution and install it and give them the best possible price for it. And I mean, it's a lot of what I call blocking and tackling. It's, you know, we just knew where the customers were, we knew what the technology pieces were, we knew how to put them together, and we went out and started selling it from day one. Does that answer your... But I can tell you, for us, and this is something I sold to our investors, I'm not building a technology company. I'm building a solutions company. You got a problem, we've got the solution. And I have no religion about technology. Whatever solves the problem in the most efficient, cost-effective way is what we bring to the table. Yes?
There's somebody who's going to solve impossible problems. Would you comment on the feasibility and future of intellectual property protection?
That's a very interesting question. The future of intellectual property protection. In my business, everybody starts with, and I'm not trying to be to minimize the question, but it's an onion, and there are many layers to the onion. So in my business, everybody starts with some kind of non-disclosure agreement, some way that says, if I tell you something I think is confidential, I am protected from you blabbing about that to somebody else. And if you do, I can come after you. So this is a pretty common practice. It seems to be a healthy practice. It seems to protect people where I am in the pursuit of a business or a technology opportunity where you're minimizing the risk that you're revealing something that you don't want others to know. So that works pretty well. And I would say in the computer-based software business, these protections are very well defined. In the entertainment business, it seems that moving content to digital formats has made it created a lot of confusion, and we could spend a long time talking about it, but I would say that really the lawyers are not going away, and there's plenty of work for them to do because there are plenty of disputes out there. And I'll give you a real-world example in my business. So a couple of days ago, we get a call from a guy who says he's assembled the most incredible music video library on the planet. And he wants to digitize it and get it up on the web and sell it. And he's got things from Altamont and the Stones and Woodstock, and I mean, just it goes back into prehistory. And so when we really started sussing out what was going on with this guy, he had started this archive with shooting stuff himself and people giving him stuff, and then he was out there buying it from other people who claimed that they owned the rights to it. And when you really dug deeply, it was somebody who said they owned the rights and just signed a piece of paper. And all I know is that in the group of executives we put around the conference call, we all looked at each other and said, this is not going to fly. And so what I mean by that is the legal problems, the intellectual property rights issues are so complex and present in how you potentially either monetize or get busted for you know, the push out through the internet. I just think it's not going to go away. And the media companies are very, very scared that their family jewels are being, I mean, forget this guy, but the Disneys, the Time Warners, the Universals, they are really, really upset that people will expose their content and, in their minds, diminish its value by pushing it out, you know, to anybody who wants it. I don't know if that's a good answer. It is not going away. In fact, it is going the other way, my view.
What do you see, Bruce, in the next 24 to 36 months in your domain? We know what's happening a little bit on the music side, but on the video side, the digital side, what trends do you see impacting you?
Well, I don't know that I would have said this a couple of years ago, but I am convinced now that television is coming to the internet. Not just video, television. So think of a television experience where, you know, you're sitting in front of the couch watching the Super Bowl. So you're going to have that through the internet in high definition, but it will somehow also enable you to interact with it. And I'm not sure I know what that means, but today, if you go to any of the big content websites, you're looking at a window inside of a relatively static web page. You know, lots of content, and some are cleverer than others, but I think for the most part, it's a text-based static image experience where the video is something happening inside a window. So Bill, I think actually that's going to flip around, and where the experience is going to be a video experience, and the textual things that you might want access to will be at your disposal. You might need to click on them for them to expose themselves. And so I really think the paradigm for, and I don't know if it's 24 to 36 months, but over the next several years, it's going to change. And the internet will not be a static place. It will, excuse me, it will be an active, you know, multi-layered video place. Does that certify my craziness? Anybody agree with that, by the way? Anybody disagree? How many of you voted for Obama? How many of you voted? Wow, he didn't do that well here. Just checking. Yeah.
He actually did pretty well here.
He did?
Yeah. What do you make of I was wondering what you make of the Yahoo deal.
I'm sorry, the Yahoo Microsoft deal?
Yeah.
I think there aren't many companies that have $44.5 billion. And I think it's fascinating that Google would be in cahoots with Yahoo to figure out how to somehow block Microsoft. Microsoft has so much money, it isn't funny. And they can really do anything they want as long as there's somebody willing to receive their loads of gobs and gobs of money. And you know, honest to goodness, I think it's a culture thing. I think that the Microsoft guys are looked upon by those in Silicon Valley as being the uncool geeks as opposed to the cool geeks. And Silicon Valley is the, you know, the kind of bullseye for the cool geeks. Even if they did it, I don't know how those cultures would come together. And like I said before, I think it's all about teams. It's all about teamwork. And in some of the very large companies that I've either worked with or worked for, that issue alone will make or break a company. How they are able to integrate and recast themselves in a new team. I don't know, what do you think?
I think it would be the next Time Warner AOL.
Well, you know, it's funny that you say that because in the business section of the LA Times today, there was this very interesting article about the new CEO of Time Warner, a guy named Jeffrey Bewkes. And he's talking about breaking up AOL and dividing it into two, making one thing the portal, if you want to call it that, and the other thing the ISP. And he wants to sell off the ISP. And my guess is this, at the end of the day, and I don't know this for a fact, but I'll bet you the book value of AOL is somewhere between $2 and $4 billion. Well, those guys sold it to Time Warner for $70 billion. And my guess is you're right. The Yahoo thing is a kind of a version of that. Absolutely. I don't know. Yahoo, does anybody use Yahoo? Anybody here? What for? Email? Sports. Stock options. So I get the finance thing, right? And how many use Google? Wow. I'll bet you that's pretty representative of the whole market. You know, how would you ever out-Google Google? Yes?
I have another question for you. Why Los Angeles?
Because that's where the customers are.
But New York, even more customers?
There are an equal, yes, you're right. There are, and as we think about expansion, the obvious place for us to go is New York. Now, I will say that we do have a couple of customers there, the Major League Baseball, MLB.com, and Broadway Video, Lorne Michaels' company is a customer. Those are two customers of ours. You're right. This is about LA and New York, and London and Tokyo, and you know, there might be 2 or 3 other centers of media on the planet. Bombay, you know. So, with that said, though, and the business plan that I really sold claimed that there were only a relatively small number of large companies at the top of that kind of ecosystem. But in fact, there were lots of companies, tens of thousands of companies that are relatively small or mid-sized who are making lots of media products. I'll give you an example. National Hot Rod Association, Pro Bowlers Association, Catholic Relief Services. These are all customers of ours. You wouldn't think of them as media companies, but they are. I mean, in effect, they have thriving businesses where they're in the television business. And the internet, and if what I'm saying, what I suggested to Bill is true, that this thing is transitioning, so it won't matter whether you're watching television via your cable and, you know, on the couch in the den, or whether you're watching it on your laptop or iPhone. It just won't matter. And if that's the case, I think these small and mid-sized companies need to find ways to get that stuff out and pushed, you know, into cyberspace. Does that make sense? Any other question?
In that time after college, before you got exactly into the technology field and you thought you were an artist and blowing through $30,000, how are you backing such projects?
The $30,000 was profit that was for the Tom Waits for No One film, and maybe I didn't make that clear. So after a couple of years, Lion Lamb, starting with Disney, buying the first 3 animation systems, and we started selling these around the world, and we were, a couple of young guys making a lot of money, and so that was that was how I felt, I guess, entrepreneurial enough to conceive and execute on this Tom Waits for No One movie. So that's how we generated money for that. Before that, that was my problem. Money was the problem, and that's what I was saying before. When I was in graduate school at UCSD in the School of Visual Arts, I was getting a lot of attention as an artist, but I could not figure out how to make money at it. And it seemed to me I was always spending money, and I wasn't getting anything back. And what I had to do was I built greenhouses and decks in Laguna Beach. I mean, so that's how that's how I kind of lived. And in fact, in thinking about the conversation today, I realized that I had always worked. I mean, since I was 14, and my kids didn't. They really didn't have that experience in the same way. So it was kind of a pay-as-you-go thing for me and the art thing. But then I got to that place where, now how am I going to make this? How am I going to be able to go to Mammoth? It just didn't equate. And so that's when, and it was by happenstance. I was just renting some of my studio out, and this wild and crazy animator came and saw what I was doing. I mean, it was completely random. And all of a sudden, my life crystallized, and I knew exactly how I was going to make money this year, kind of thing. So I'm open. It's being open to those kinds of opportunities that might be the difference. I don't know that, but I'm thinking it might.
Bruce Lyon, Integrated Media Technologies, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you.